Watch this rooftop in the dark. That orange flash you just saw was not a missile. It was the lid of an oil storage tank, flying 30 meters into the night sky. And it just happened at the largest refinery in Moscow, twice in 4 days. Her name is Moscow Oil Refinery, 12 million tons of crude a year, the single largest fuel source for the Russian capital, its surrounding region, and its airports. Tonight, it is on fire. Not figuratively, verified footage, multiple independent angles. Confirmed authentic, and this is only the beginning of what I'm about to show you. For 4 years, Vladimir Putin has tried to convince his own population that the war is happening somewhere else, somewhere far away, somewhere that doesn't touch them. That illusion just ended because this strike didn't happen near the front line, it happened inside Moscow's own backyard. The fuel that fills Russian Air Force jets, the fuel that heats Russian apartments, the fuel that funds the entire war machine. All of it now running through a refinery that's partially in flames. This is not an isolated incident. This is a pattern. And once you see the pattern, you will understand exactly why the Kremlin is panicking right now. Let's establish what we know, confirmed and verified. At least 5 separate fires were ignited across the facility. Ukrainian forces report hits on the crude processing unit, the secondary processing units, and the tank farm itself. Ukraine's intelligence service, the SBU, states this single refinery supplies a significant share of Moscow's entire fuel market, plus the surrounding region, plus its airports. This is not a remote facility in occupied territory. This is the capital, the seat of power, and it has now been hit twice in less than a week. Verified video shows the explosion in real time. A storage tank lid launched dozens of meters into the air by the force of the blast. This is not propaganda, this is physics. So how is Ukraine doing this, and why now? This is where the story widens, because Moscow's refinery is not an isolated target. It's the latest strike in a systematic campaign that has been quietly reshaping the war for months. Remember the numbers. The Economist's own model, built from NASA satellite fire data and independent internet outage monitoring, found that Ukraine has hit Russian strategic infrastructure roughly 3 times more often than public databases even record. Over 37% of all strategic targets deep inside Russian territory have already been struck. This is what that 37% actually looks like. Tank lids flying through the night sky, over the capital, and the financial damage is already measurable. Russia's energy export revenue is now sitting 34% below what oil prices alone would predict. 1/3 of the war chest gone before it ever reaches the treasury. Russian refinery throughput has collapsed to its lowest level since 2009. The International Energy Agency confirmed this directly, citing sustained Ukrainian drone attacks on refining and export infrastructure as the cause. Think about what that actually means for ordinary Russians. Refineries don't just produce fuel for tanks and fighter jets. They produce the gasoline that fills cars in Moscow, the diesel that runs the trucks delivering food to grocery stores, the jet fuel that keeps domestic flights running. Every strike on this kind of facility doesn't just hurt the military, it quietly raises the price of everything, for everyone in a country already battling runaway inflation and a banking system in crisis. Now, look at what else happened in the same 48 hours. Ukraine's general staff confirmed a separate strike on a fuel storage depot in Russia's Rostov region. Multiple fires reported there as well. And simultaneously, 2 bridges were hit. A road bridge over the Kalka River in occupied Donetsk, a railway bridge over the North Crimean Canal, deep inside occupied Crimea. This is not random. This is coordinated simultaneous pressure on 3 different points of the same machine: fuel production, fuel storage, and fuel transport. Crimea is already suffering severe gasoline shortages. Ukraine is now deliberately targeting the bridges and highways that keep military trucks moving in and out of the peninsula. The goal is not one explosion. The goal is to sever Crimea logistically, refinery by refinery, bridge by bridge, truck by truck. And it's working, using a weapon Russia did not anticipate. Medium-range drones produced inside Ukraine that no sanctions regime, no negotiation, and no diplomatic pressure can stop. The commander of Ukraine's drone forces, Robert Brovdy, posted something striking on Telegram after the strike. He said Moscow will eventually fall. Not onto a beach in Crimea, but into the consequences of this war. He added that the Kremlin understands this, that the number of untouchable zones inside Russia is shrinking. That is not bravado. That is an accurate description of what just happened on camera. President Zelensky addressed the strike directly, calling it a justified response to Russian attacks on Ukrainian cities, and stating plainly that it's time for the war to end, and that Russia must take the necessary diplomatic steps. But here's the detail that should concern Moscow even more than the fire itself. Verified footage circulating from the strike also shows an impact on a residential high-rise building. Multiple sources suggest Russian air defense missiles, fired at the incoming drones, missed their targets, and struck the city instead. Additional footage appears to confirm Russian air defense repeatedly firing and missing. Read that again. Russia's own air defense defending its own capital may have caused damage to its own civilians while failing to stop the drones it was aimed at. This is the same vulnerability the Kiel Institute's Endgame report and the Economist investigation both pointed to weeks ago. A war machine stretched so thin its own defenses are starting to work against it. And remember, this is happening at the exact moment Russia's central bank chief has vanished from public view. At the exact moment Russians are pulling cash out of banks at the fastest pace in 30 years. At the exact moment the country's fiscal buffer has run dry. The refinery fire isn't a separate story, it's the same story, from a different angle. Energy revenue collapsing, fiscal reserves gone, the currency guardian missing, and now, fire, visible from space inside the capital itself. Each piece alone might be explainable. Together, they form something the Kremlin cannot spin away. Here's what I keep coming back to. For 4 years, Moscow has functioned as a kind of sanctuary, a place where the war was an abstraction, something that happened to soldiers, to border towns, to people far away. That sanctuary just cracked, visibly, on camera, twice in 4 days. Think about the psychology of that for a moment. Muscovites who spent 4 years believing the war was something happening to other people are now watching their own skyline light up orange. They are hearing the same explosions their soldiers have described from the front. The distance that protected the capital from the reality of this war is closing, fire by fire. And the targeting is not slowing down, it's accelerating, expanding from the refineries themselves to the storage depots, to the bridges, to the highways that supply them. Every strike makes the next one easier to justify, easier to execute, and harder for Russian air defense to stop. The question now isn't whether this campaign continues. It's how much of Moscow's energy infrastructure will still be standing by winter. Fires are still burning at the refinery tonight. We don't yet know the full extent of the damage. What we do know is this: the war that Moscow tried to keep at a distance just arrived at its own front door.